My name is Stephen McPherson, or at Grievous Balisong on Instagram, and I come before you today to fill a niche. I've been flipping Balisong since around December of 2019, before the world went to hell. And in our wonderful stay in purgatory, I've had lots of time to myself. In my isolation, I've filled my time with the usuals, like binging TV shows, eating way too much food, and having lots of me time, if you know what I'm saying. And in that space, I've had a lot of time diligently spent practicing flipping of my Balisongs, and also finding my way through this small yet incredibly complicated community. And I've learned a lot. One of the things I've noticed is something I see in a lot of communities, which is this growing divide between a deep, thriving group of long lived community members and the consistently alienated newcomers. And at least for me, especially with Balisongs, I find it to be incredibly pertinent to know the terminology before these newer people start bumbling their way through endless feeds of dudes like me with way too much cash to spend on knives you don't need, talking about features that you don't understand. Before you too can be part of this soggy muffin circle jerk that we call a community, you have to know we're all stroking it. And that's my goal with my first video. To provide people in this community, new and old, a place to reference the basic jargon that gets thrown around in all kinds of Balisong media so you can make sense of all this bullshit and you too can avoid eating the muffin, so to speak. I want to divide my English 101 lesson posing as a fun Balisong video into two basic sections, and that's Balisong anatomy and Balisong classifications. There are all kinds of Balisongs out there with all kinds of constructions, but I want to keep it pretty simple. Here's a really common type of Balisong that I've deconstructed to show you the anatomy of. Working our way around here, there are almost always three constants. You have a blade, two handles, some pins, that's kind of hold it together. Quickly, the basic structure of a blade itself is broken down into two main sections. You've got the main body here with the blade, the swedge, the spine, and then here, this little piece of metal that comes out the back of the blade is a tang. In fixed blades, usually this runs all the way through a handle, but in a Balisong's case, the tang only needs to be as long as it needs to fit the pivot holes. In the case of this knife, the BRS Alpha Beast, the blade here holds the two pins in the tang. These are called tang pins. They make contact with the handles here and there to prevent them from impacting directly with the blade itself and also with each other. You can see that they cannot touch. You can see also that the handles pivot inside this little steel barrel. Let me pop them out to show you. This itself is called a bushing. The bushing makes direct contact with the washers on both sides of the knife itself, and those create a direct little contact point. It adds a little bit of play because you can see like it's actually physically a unit itself. The wiggle back and forth is what's called play. Now that allows the handle to swing pretty freely around the blade. I'd also like to bring your attention to the handles here. They're composed of two slabs of titanium on both sides, just one slab. And then they're held at a specific width. Usually it's the washers plus the width of the blade by this little guy here, and that thing that keeps the space is called a spacer. The spacer plus The handles, when you look at it from the side profile, creates a pretty little sandwich. Thusly, these style of handles are intelligently named sandwich handles. Here's an example of another sandwich design knife, this time a BRS replicant. In this case, the pins are actually small little steel barrels held in the sandwich, and they make contact here and here. This is called a Zen cup, this is called a Zen nipple, and the barrels in this case are called Zen pins. Zen pins are the only other kind of pin that are commonly found on Balisongs, the other one being Tang pin, which we covered before. You can also see that each side of the sandwich handle is actually made of two pieces and not just one. The internal piece, usually made of metal, is called a liner, and the external piece is called a scale. In my case, my replicant has carbon fiber scales. More commonly, they're usually G10. Sometimes you find micarta, and almost always the liner of a Balisong is usually titanium. In the case of like the Alpha Beast, where it's just one piece on each side, those are usually just called slabs. And here's a third design, a Squid Industries Craig Reagan. There you can see that the Zen pins are actually press fit into the handles, which are, this time, one solid piece. This style of handle is called a channel handle, and this is because there's a single channel just milled out of one solid block of material, which here it's aluminum. Now, I wasn't going to mention these before, but it was brought to my attention that there's another kind of channel handle. They're called the Benchmade 4X series cast titanium to make those. They're long discontinued because it's stupid expensive to make and no one casts titanium anymore. But hey, it's information for you. So there you go. Channel handles. Now that we understand the basic mechanics behind our Dager fidget spinners, it's time to start actually critiquing the class of Balisong. This is honestly one of the main reasons I'm making this video. Your everyday veterans usually get some of this wrong. So we'll start with the very bottom of the barrel. Your everyday CCC. CCC stands for any combination of the words like cheap, China, crap, other words starting with C. Here is one you'll see pretty often, which is a replica of a knife from CSGO, which is actually a rip-off of another knife that's real. You can see the tolerances of knives of this caliber are usually really sloppy. This isn't even as bad as some of them come. The materials are usually very easily damaged. You can see that I've got massive like nucleations here on the pin sights, and they touch, the spring lash doesn't work anymore. Oftentimes you can't even adjust knives like this, so it doesn't even matter when they start to like flop around. You can't fix it. If you want to see if flipping is for you, usually you can go somewhere like this without committing to a massive stack of cash. And a lot of members in the community start here. I think everyone probably starts somewhere around here. And if someone tells you that they didn't, they are lying. I know I did, and I know you will. But only for $30 more, we can get into some better knives. Now, there are different makers all over the place, usually for different prices. The place I usually like to start people off is something like a Squid Industries Squiddy. And that's exactly what I have here. Squiddies are awesome. They're like $50 a piece. They pretty much give you everything that you would want out of a pretty good trainer. I mean, like, they don't have like the best tolerances, and they still have like tap. But ideally, like, they have the good weight distribution and the good swing, and they run on little Zen pins. They're really durable designs. They're made out of really durable materials. So a Squid Industries Squiddy is usually a great place to start. From there, you can go tons of different directions for production knives. I have some here that are grouped by name. There are some we've seen before over here from Blade Runner systems, like the Alpha Beast and the Replicant. And here I have the Squid Industries Craig Reagan, which we talked about in the channel design section. They also make basically they make more trainers than they do knives. This is their only knife at the moment. Here's a Nautilus, which is, I think, one of my favorite trainers I've ever got the chance to flip. It's a little channel design with like scales on it that are really nice and grippy. I like this guy a lot. He gets a ton of flipping time. There are other brands I will list for your consideration. You have Jerry Home Designs. Max Ace does great stuff out of China. Black Balisong does awesome, really Latin-inspired designs out of Mexico. And then you have your classic all-American Benchmade. They're not as great anymore. I mean, if you can get a 4X for a price that's not $500, go for it. But any of these knives can range from anywhere as low as $50 to as high as $500. Kind of hanging out in the mostly titanium slab range, depending on brand, edition, and tons of other variables like aftermarket prices. But no matter what, you probably want to get into production knives at some point. After those common production knives, we get to like slightly rarer stuff. MidTechs are a lot of people's bread and butter. They kind of don't exactly want the same knife everyone else has on the production line, but they want something a little bit more special than that. They're not ready to get into customs yet. MidTechs usually where people in that demographic hang out. MidTechs are always a combined effort between one or more creators. Oftentimes, the handles themselves are manufactured by the knife's producer, and the blade is outsourced to another producer. Usually they work on either cutting out the blade, sharpening the blade, grinding the blade, and then they return that back to the main producer to assemble the knives, oftentimes assembled and tuned by hand to higher specifications than your everyday production knives. Two that really come to mind for me are the Jerry Home Maelstrom. Those are kind of old though. I know he's doing another run of the track readies, so you can keep your eyes out for those if that's your kind of thing. Another good example would be a Turbo Jackalope Puddin. I don't have the Puddin yet. I am on the list though. I'm number 23 of 25, so I'm definitely going to be making a review of that. You can keep your eye out for that. But regardless, these knives always fetch a high price. They're never really cheap, and they're often one of a kind, produced either one at a time or in very small limited batches. So they're usually very unique and incredibly different from other makes from the same producer that makes them. And finally, for the creme de la creme of Balisongs come our heavy hitters, and that's customs. For me, custom Balisongs are the be-all, end-all of the Balisong market. Custom Balisongs are always one of a kind, can often be made to order, and are some of the most expensive knives you will ever see on the market, with perfect execution, finishing, tolerances, rare materials, and heavily specialized and incredibly intensive manufacturing processes. If you're looking for a custom, you should be ready to spend at least $900 or more, since they're not just knives, they're art. Usually people love to flock to one creator, and that's fine. My three personal favorites are Julian Klein, of which I have 3 of his knives. I have an Orca, an Emissary Light Tech, and a Monarch. You also have Hanson Metals, who collaborated with Julian on the Monarch. You can see his maker signature right here next to his. And Benson Blades. He makes the Planarian, which is a little bit less known of a custom knife, but god damn, is it to die for. And I look forward to being able to have one day. And quickly, not as an afterthought, but realistically something that kind of needs its own video, we have mods, upgrades, and special parts. Pretty much any piece of any knife is replaceable by something else. And there are tons of people in the community, usually on Instagram and on Reddit, who make what they think are better parts for your knives. And they very well may be. It's all down to personal preference. I can think of 3 mod producers off the top of my head. You have Turbo Jackalope. You also have Bally Knives, who makes awesome rescales for your replicants and stuff. And Arthur Goins, who does anodization work, has a CNC mill, stuff like that. So all of these are wonderful mod producers who you can check out on Instagram. I'll include their @s in the description of the video. But realistically, like I said before, talking about mods and parts is kind of its own video. So stick around for that. So that's it. If it isn't obvious, I have absolutely no experience making videos. I did this whole thing with a $20 tripod and 2 weekends of my time, plus a metric shit ton of support for some great people on Instagram. I'd like to thank Arthur Goins and Julian Klein for reposting all of my teasers and constantly egging me on to get this thing done. I made this video to fill a niche, and if it so stands that by itself this is the only video that I work on, so be it. But I enjoyed the process of making this and hope that me pulling the trigger on my urge to create inspires other people in the community with the same urge to create to maybe try it themselves and see what it means for them. Thank you so much for watching. Go follow me and all the other people that I mentioned on Instagram. You can find them in the description. Until next time, take it easy.